understands your unique insurance needs. At Metrosint General Insurance Company, we've invested 50 years of service to guarantee that you have the peace of mind that you deserve. When it comes to motor vehicle, property, employer's liability, business insurance, and much more, we've got you covered. Our professional and friendly staff understands your needs and ensures you understand your options. Metrosint General Insurance Company.
Computec Limited is one of the oldest computer businesses in SVG. Computec supplies a wide range of desktop and laptop computers and printers to suit your home or business, and is the only company that provides a full range of IT solutions to our many customers across St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Computec, your authorized service center for Dell, HP, and Lenovo. Ideally located in Kingstown on the corner of Egmont and Bay Street, opposite the Financial Complex building. Remember the name. Computec, 25 years and getting better.
District Stairs is making it a September to remember. We're offering introductory prices for laminate and vinyl flooring and baseboards and trim for the entire month. These luxurious looks at affordable prices are easy to install and come in an array of colors suitable for every room in your home. Act now to get free shipping. Check out our website at districtstairs.com or call us 289-200-7649. We're also on WhatsApp, Facebook, and Instagram. Remember, District Stairs.
In fact, in every other form, folk culture is something I'm very much interested in. So I'm happy to be here, and hopefully we'll have a very good discussion.
Yes, I believe you will. Mr. Mas?
Good afternoon to our viewing audience, and good afternoon to those here. I must say I'm greatly honored to share space with so many persons who would have greatly contributed to the cultural and creative landscape in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Where do I begin? Well, currently I'm an undergraduate student pursuing studies in cultural and creative industries, but I consider myself a young Vincentian, cultural and creative practitioner. My involvement in the arts, particularly theater, started way back as primary school, but I would say it was my enrollment in Bishop's College and, you know, traveling through that ladder that made me realize that, okay, this is what I want to do, and I started taking it seriously from that. I have participated in some creative projects. I have several productions under my belt in different capacities. Yeah, that's me.
Thank you so much, and we are all grateful for your contributions. Now, I'm going to throw this question out there. What makes you most proud to be a Vincentian? Miss Hope, it start with you.
Oh, I love my country so much. Is I most proud. That's tough. I love everything about being Vincy. I love the way we speak. I love our landscape. I love our folk, like our quadrille, different things. If I were to pick one thing, it would be difficult because I really love my country.
So you love almost everything.
Everything Vincy. Yeah.
Dr. Fraser, what about you? What makes you most proud to be a Vincentian?
It's a very difficult question to answer. I mean, I've never thought of being anybody else. I've grown up in this country, part of the landscape, so to speak, relationships, just about every aspect of it. So I'm a Vincent. I never thought of being anywhere else. So that, to me, that is being a Vincentian. I am Vincentian. It's me. I am Vincentian.
Definitely. All right, Mr. Mas, what would you say? Would you choose one trait?
Yes, I would. It's a very difficult task to narrow it down, but I would say what I love most about being Vincentian is our passion. I don't think we realize, but we are very passionate people. We are passionate about our politics. We are passionate about our culture. We are passionate about, it's like whatever we're doing at that moment, we are passionate about, and we're hella passionate about each other. No matter how much we may cuss and fight on a particular topic because we disapprove or we disagree, but I book it and show if there's a national matter or there's a natural disaster, we are together to help one another. So I would say what I like most about being Vincentian, about Vincentians, is our passion.
Wonderful. Miss Batiste, what would you say?
I like our cadence, the way we speak. It's very distinctive, and we don't realize that until we're in a room with many different persons with different accents.
Yeah.
I have no desire to talk like a Jamaican. I have no desire to be Barbadian, and I have no desire at all to be Trinidadian. I love being a Vincentian, as Dr. Fraser has indicated. I know no other way. I have no other way of identifying myself other than my country. What has made my country is a very, very rich cultural landscape in my country. And I was pleased that my family insisted when we were very small and growing up that we met the other members of our family that are from the indigenous peoples of this country, the Kalinago and the Black Caribs. And those persons you try to find out which race are they, Quadroona, Centroona. You don't even know what they are, but there's so many mixtures. Yeah. And I love that because in those mixtures, you hear a lot about family traditions, and you try to trace them back, and you see it's a little bit that came from the French islands, some that came from Africa, and the different in the west coast of Africa, and what made me so intrigued about my identity and being a Vincentian is to look and see if I can trace where this particular African heritage, which part of West Africa,
Beautiful.
you know, and
Yes,
to learn
that-
more about it.
Yes.
The
Love-
ancestry.
Ancestry, that's it. Rodney, what makes you most proud? Because this island is yours, this island is mine.
Our uniqueness, you know what I mean? Our uniqueness in terms of our cultural heritage, our cultural history. And I know as the discussion go on, a lot of people would realize that. But Ms. Matisse touched on something that I read in this week. The amount of people that came here and settled here and have so many influence on us. The Amerindians, the Caribs, the Europeans, the Africans, we Caribbean people. But most importantly, we have black and white sand beaches. I mean, 110,000 people, an active volcano. It's just so much to be proud of, you know what I mean? And as I think Miss Batiste was just saying, no matter where I go in this world, I would always be a product of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I think, you know what I mean, as Jekyll said, our passion helps to drive you to that, because if you could please a Vincentian audience, you can please anybody.
You must know this. You definitely will know this. And I appreciate the comments and the diversity and answers. I'm sure by now, our audience, even if you're not of Vincentian, you must be convinced that we do have a lot to offer here. And I'm going to ask now, where would you say we have come from as a people? And you can feel free to talk about the destinations, the various countries, or the culture, because I know our culture has somewhat changed. So just take us back in time. Where have we really come from as a people, you know, a culture? Dr. Fraser, take us away on this one.
Well, I was going to make the point before, when you asked the question before about being a Vincentian and so on. One of the things we have to look at is, in what way are we different from other Caribbean people?
Right.
When you mix with other Caribbean people, I mean, there are differences in the same way. There might be a difference even in the accents with people from, say, Sandy and Chateauguay. And when you come together with these people, you look and you say, we are not really different in that sense. So that's an aspect we have to look at. We are a part of the Caribbean culture, but in what way are we really different? Now, even the definition of cultures, obviously, the way we live, the way we are. But when you relate culture to history, what is important is that culture is an important aspect of our history. And I got this particular angle from a Nigerian writer who was very interested in what's Yongo. And he calls culture, he said the most important thing to the colonial was what he called the cultural bomb. And the way he explains it, he says, if you're colonizing a people, you're conquering a people, once you have guns over them, you have them under control. But if the guns are not there, how do you control them? Now, the way you control them is through your culture. And when you look at history over the years, you see a deliberate effort by the colonial powers to erase the culture, whether it was language, in the case of the Hairouna people. At one, there were laws on the book banning drums. So to them, control ultimately came with culture. So the total control of culture was part of that. And well, just to throw this out, I'm sure we'll come around to this again, but the point is, once we became independent, we got over the whole British impact. We are then exposed to the Americans and the whole international way. Sometimes when you look at how we dress, are we different in a sense? And you made the point that culture changes over the years. And we have also to look at that. And what way are we really different from? We all look at the same TV, we look at the same cinema shows and so on.
So would you say that we have become more Americanized?
Well, in the sense that most of the Western world has become Americanized, and part of our problem, and I look at culture as a base. The only how you could become Vincentian is to concentrate on your culture and reaffirm that culture. If you don't do that, then you are no different from an American.
That's
So
right.
I think that is one of the challenges we have to face as an independent nation.
All right, thank you. Miss Hope, what would you say? Where have we really come from what are some of the things that you would like to highlight about our history, our cultural history?
Okay, well, if I were to just twist it a bit, like as an educator, one of the challenges I find is that many of my students, because I teach theater arts, and obviously our basis there is our cultural history. And because it's Caribbean theater arts, we try to reinforce what is Vincentian. And it's difficult. I myself, I was born in the 70s, late 70s. So I grew up with my grandparents. I had all of those nice traditions being passed down to me, moonlight night, ring games, and all of these things. And if you say that to children of this century, they're like, huh? You know? So, I mean, I think we've been losing a little bit of who we are in terms of bridging that intergenerational gap and passing on traditions to our young people.
Have we lost a little bit, or you think we've lost a lot?
Well, I think I haven't done as much research. I can only speak to the demographic to which I, interact with.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Matisse, what is your input so far on this aspect of the conversation?
I have to say, perhaps I am fortunate in the time I was born, and so I'm able to compare to see what's happening. Especially, you were playing, as you said, ring games, the traditions handed down with top, spinning, marble, moonlight night, and Nine Mornings was much more interesting in our time than it is now. Now it's a fashion festival because of the times within which you live. I was always very wary about the cultural penetration from the United States of America, that we would lose some of that because we had lost so much already. We lost our native language, our indigenous language, which is pounded out of us when they succeeded with sending the forced shipment to Belize, to Honduras, so that we didn't have the language. And we had to re-import the language now, and that is teaching it at summer school. We lost the art of drumming. If you listen to the older people in some of the villages, like in Trumaka and Rose Hall, that kind of drumming, and then you listen to the difference in the drumming, the people from the Windward side, it's a whole different rhythm altogether that they use. Even from village, sometimes when you drive into different parts of St. Vincent, you listen to the accents and the way they pronounce words, the way they will say the same thing. And the people who forever would say bottle and won't say bottle. And you might say that, they're not educated. They're educated people, they just simply say bottle. And you try to find out where that came from. And if you go back, as some people who did linguistics and so say, if you go back, you would see that even among different tribes, the same word is pronounced differently, but it means the same thing. And in some parts of the country, I remember when it was still very popular to have tea meeting, hanging. And the tea meeting, when I had the opportunity as a policymaker, I tried very hard to get people to come back to the tea meeting. But trying to get people to come back to the meetings, like trying to bring the 60s when we didn't have TV, the 50s and 60s with no TV, hanging and tea meeting would have been popular cultural expressions. But when TV started now in the 70s and 80s, that waned away, and just it was the older people who liked that, because that was the form of entertainment. We had people who did the classics. There were operas here, in the Mikado was one operatic production that was done here. The staging of Julius Caesar, that was done here, and Pride and Prejudice, those English classics. So that you can also have an appreciation. Sometimes you need, if you don't know what this is doing, you can't make music. So you have to know those sides as well. Then in the 60s and 70s, we were open to Radio Guardian and Radio Trinidad. So you had more penetration. Remember, we used to have to listen, Adrian, remember that? Yeah. We used to listen to what would be the road march in Trinidad, because that would be the road march in St. Vincent. Now, you can't try that in St. Vincent this day and age. So culture is a thing that evolves and it is in a particular space. But the older things, as Ms. Hope has indicated, her students, this generation, don't know what she's talking about because they had that practice, it didn't cement and stay because you're pounded every day by other cultural forces. What is redeeming, however, for example, like the Indians, the East Indians who are here, they took that deliberate step of saying, let's do something about our heritage, because they only knew it from their families, very close. But lots of Vincentians didn't understand about where the Indians, persons of Indian extraction in St. Vincent, where they came from. And so they made that deliberate attempt trying to find out and dig into the registers, find out which city they came from, which village, and so that is rebuilding that nexus now with their own ethnicity. And when I had the opportunity to go to Indus Carfest in Guyana and saw 12 tribes of Caribs and so many tribes of Araks, and seeing it is from the art, when you look at the artistic expressions, and then you looked at it, you realize, oh, that looks familiar like one of the petroglyphs because of the arches that they made and the same, the eye formation like the one down to Leyu, the Leyu petroglyph. And so it makes you so curious to want to know more about that. And what is pleasing as well is some years ago, when they were digging a pit toilet in Clare Valley, that they found stacks of wares and we were able to age them, to find out the age. And they had been there since around some like AD 900 or something like that. But it was buried really deep and was only eroded by time and, again, it was near to the beach. So we learned that our people came up from the Orinoco. They were near to the rivers and near to the beaches. And there were seafaring people and the canoes that they dug out and so on. So we have so much more in our own culture to discover. I think that we have to make it now exciting to this generation to want to know more. Like you notice the United States, man, those movies, they keep making them, they're still making Westerns. Still Jesse James, I think one of his guns going on, the gun that killed Jesse James now going on auction at one museum. So we have to try to get that, to get our young people excited about our own heritage and culture.
Yes, thank you so much for that mouthful. Rodney?
Well, change is generic. That's one thing that we have to identify. But foundation is key, right? And Ms. Hope mentioned it. One thing that we're being faced with is preservation, right? And all elements of preservation, right? Writing of it, practical aspect of it, right? From the Department of Culture, we did something last week that highlights our folk tradition and put it in on the new world order, which is the new technology, was one of the best thing that ever happened, because at this particular point it's at 48,000 views. So there's an appetite for it. But what we need to do is as Ms. B was saying earlier, we need to package it. We need to make it, if I could use this phrase, sexy. And I mean, for the people, for the students that Nisha interact with daily, because we have a lot of documentation now. I mean, as much as a lot of people don't think we don't document, we have a lot of documentation. Because from the Department of Culture level, in the research department, we have over 36 documentation on our heritage, our cultural heritage. Mr. Fraser is here. Doc Fraser, I know he have a lot. Doc Adams have a lot of books that is written. And I'm still going to make that request, that fight, that we need some of these books on our school curriculum. Yeah. We need to start targeting from the kindergarten, from the grade ones, come all the way up, in order to help preserve this thing, right? For example, the folk tradition production that we did last weekend, there's a young man who's an animator. He's now thinking how he can take that production and animate it. Now that is preservation. Now that is now making it attractive for who? People who are now on social media. You understand where I'm coming from? So it is there, and yes, we're coming from a far place, but we need to continue to preserve it, not just in books or writing, because we hardly read these days. That is the harsh reality. So how do we align ourselves with what is happening and put the information there, right? For example, Jeremy Payne, he's a fashion designer, and people take for granted what he's doing. They just think, oh, they have an top from Jeremy Payne with a design. But how much of us understand what that design is all about, Now that is a part of preservation also. It probably won't be his own design because the petroglyphs really don't belong to anybody. It's a part of our history. But what he can do in the flip side of it is that take the same product, the same brand, and when you go to the schools or when you go to the young people, outside of them just weighing the product, explain to them what is on the product. That is one way of preserving it.
Education.
You understand where I'm coming from? If you look at Jamaica, Elephant Man. Elephant Man had this song, "Pan the River, Pan the Bank," that dance thing. But that was a mixture of Jamaican folk dance with what was happening at the time with dance hall. You understand? So these are things that we have to look at because, you know what I mean, the information is there, but then how do we align ourselves with all of the competing things that is happening out there now? Again, we're talking about being so Americanized. Now, the media is full of a lot of things to a point where we're now having social experiment that is Americanized. Why wasn't that a social experiment of the Joseph Chattez story or the Jack Sparrow part of the Pirates of the Caribbean? You understand? But then, again, we just can't blame the young people because what should I say? The information is not in their face. It's not as sexy for them. You understand? One of the things, we don't reason anymore. I remember as a young man growing up in Sinai, I spent hours reasoning with people like Kaka and Dale and, you know what I mean, these older folks. Now you hardly find that level of reasoning. I mean, so what do we do? Do we sit back and say, oh, them young people don't want that? No, we have to find ways. You know what I mean? Just like what you're doing, you're pulling Miss B, you're pulling Mr. Fraser with the younger people. You understand? So my people would listen and they get the information from there. You understand?
Package it differently.
Exactly.
I think we're going to leave her without addressing that. But let's just hear what Jake has to say on this aspect.
Okay, so what question do, I would say, the question of how far, and I have to draw on an experience I had in 2019 when I started studies. I did a course in cultural studies. I remember the first module had us evaluating the various definitions of culture. And prior to, I remember getting so overwhelmed and so flustered, like, how many definitions of culture are there? And we're growing up, I was taught culture is the way of life of a people. And it wasn't until then that I realized how rigid and how limited that definition that was drilled into our heads based on our syllabus had me thinking about culture. So now after that, I learned that culture is dynamic. culture is ever changing. So to answer that question using that reflection, I wouldn't say that we have strayed far. I say it's still there, but we're having troubles currently expressing and owning our Vincentian culture and our Vincentian identity. And it's increasingly more difficult now in the age of the digital economy, and prompted and further propelled by the pandemic, the use of new medias like TikTok and these online platforms, YouTube and Instagram. So that's that there. I realized that was so after interacting with several persons from my demographic, they're still aware of several things culturally. I mean, I would be aware of a bit more because this is what I love. So I would go the extra mile to learn. But for persons in my age group, my demographic, they are still aware of these things culturally. But as Rodney said, now we have to now frame it in a new, different package. Understand that they are not the Dark Adams and the Dark Fraser and the Miss Matisse who, because of their era, would have gravitated or consumed it a different way. You can't package it like that for us anymore. You have to try, But in the same length and breadth, we have to be very careful not to water it down, not to stylize it too much, to keep the core and keep what it means to be Vincentian, the aesthetic, the ethos, everything for it. As a young creator, I don't know if Nisha have paid attention or anyone here who would have seen my work. There's always some aspect of Vincentian culture, a ritual, a folklore, a tradition in any one of my pieces, right? Because I always feel that as a creator, as a creative, as a cultural practitioner, a particular onus is on us to preserve our culture. Because whereas you could write something in a book or write something in a document and put it in a file, when as a creative we are innovators by nature. That's what we do. We are creatives. We adapt. We create. When you package something in a creative way, especially now further heightened by the digital age, it is there forever.
Responsibility to the next generation to take all these old things that people are telling you about and package it. And you now have to be the motivator to bring your generation along with these new discoveries. That's what you now have to pass that on. You know it's TikTok. How many people know the 13 different movements of the quadrille? You got TikTok. So start, don't say it's not documented. You now have so many platforms. So use that to expound and get your generation excited. Why did they have this? And why is it only those people that live in a certain area have maintained it and almost want to keep it a secret? There's a reason for all of that. And you have to go and explore that, try to find out what it is, because that is also culturally bound.
I remember as well, right? I was doing a paper and I decided, okay, I was the only Vincentian in the group. And I decided, okay, that's why I spoke all about our passion. And I realized, okay, now you're not making me do any Jamaican studies. I mean, I'm studying here, but I live in St. Vincent. And that's where I would want to practice, because the thought of having to live and work outside of St. Vincent, it scares me. It honestly does scare me to the point where I have to say, okay, you have to be open-minded. You have to travel abroad to come back to see now what we need and where we are. Because sometimes when you're in the frame, it's hard to see the picture because I'm living here, right? And I decided to do that paper on Carnival. And I was amazed, blown away of the way Errol Hill spoke about St. Vincent and our contribution to Carnival. That woke me up, okay, so St. Vincent, we are more than just the little rock with the several Grenadine islands that they come to. We actually did great contribution to the cultural landscape and the cultural fabric and canvas of the region. And so just to reiterate, we just need to now own who we are, own our Vincentian aesthetic, So yes.
Bakisha, before you move on.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
There is a thing that we had to correct the other day. When we hear culture, we think 50 years and 60 years ago and 40 years ago, right? And then somebody wants, a young performer wants it to me, are we really going to discount what we did 20 years ago in culture? So every time you hear the word culture, young people start thinking 40 years and 50 years. But then we're not looking at, as again, it's our way of life. I remember when, Dings Johnson, Afatusas, they had a particular sound that was unique to them. And their influence of writing came from when they used to listen to a radio station, Waves,
Webs.
radio station. Now that has changed. We let that go, and now we have people like Sarah Mark. All those other performers, right? All those other singers. When you talk about drama, you talk about Odd and Nam, Naked Roots. But when you talk about drama, you're talking about Focus. You're talking about J. Kelly. You're talking about Sean. It's a thing where we need to get rid of that thinking that when you hear culture is 40 years and 50 years, and not realizing that even something that happened tomorrow or yesterday, that is also contributing to culture, and it's not always a long ago thing and a history
That's
thing.
what I'm begging Dr. Fraser if he can really get. Oh, better still, here's a lecturer at Community College. Dr. Fraser has these volumes he did from Whence We Came.
Mm-hmm.
So every morning you'll be locked on at 6:45 from Whence We Came.
Mm-hmm.
And I think more than once he has tried to put them into volumes and so on. And you have the new media now, the new medium now, that it would be good to have a working project with your children, because I remember, with your students, I remember when we were doing the first volume of the folk songs, Junior Sutherland took a Form 3 at grammar school, and that was their music project, something indigenous to St. Vincent. So they were enthusiastic because they never folk song, and so they became so enthusiastic about it because this is about them.
True.
So I guess that is part of the way, the new pathway of trying to keep these folk songs alive. I heard y'all playing a number of them, and whenever I saw there's a textbook that is coming out, I think Dr. Fraser may be associated with it. There's a map of St. Vincent. When you open the book, but guess what? How they spell the name, the capital. And if I was the editor, if I was the purchaser of that book, I wouldn't. They'd have to correct that map. There's an error in that map, and you're giving it to children here. So we're going to reinforce this nonsense that we're Kingston
instead of Kingston.
So we have to be very careful sometimes what you're buying.
Yes, definitely.
Because the work has already been done by Dr. Fraser, but you have publishers and editors and so on, and you have to watch them. I remember there was a book I saw with teaching children about tigers. How many children in St. Vincent are going to be relating between age 5 and 12 with a tiger? Yes, we have tigers in Suriname and in Guyana and so on, but we have to make consumption reinforce our cultural objects. That petroglyph down to Lee. I'm always fascinated by it. So I went and dig up all the information. And the information is there. What Dr. was saying in the winter solar says at the onset of the winter solar says where it's located, and you move all the other things. The eyes will light up, and why they light up? What kind of portrayal was that? Is it religious? Is it related to the harvest? All those things there for the other next generation to dig up and find out. It is perhaps some ritual related to us. And don't worry about people telling you it has everything to do with the Bible. There are different aspects of your life. Religion is one aspect, one facet of your life.
True.
And it depends on what is the faith, because there are several faiths. And we have to be respectful of all the faiths and tolerant of faiths.
Yes, and we're going to talk about the education system and how we try to preserve our heritage and culture. I remember in my time, which is not too long ago, I used to do drumming. We used to drum in Victoria Park. We used to have, Lee Government School, all the different schools coming together, and, we had drumming. We even had heritage clubs where they would learn the Garifuna language, sing the national anthem. We don't really see these things anymore. We had even the Ministry of Fisheries and Agriculture. They would always try to keep the fishing culture alive and have the competitions running. Write a poetry, a poem, an essay on fisheries, so that we could understand what has been happening and what our culture is really like. So if we are to give ideas to our educators and even to our students and transfer this energy that we have here, this passion, so that they can have the drive to dig up what Miss Batiste is talking about. How can we now package this in the school system to get our children to understand, to learn, to love who we are as Vincentians? Ronnie?
Well, as I said,
Randy, how you jump up like I'm frightened?
well, I'm all for the packaging, and I'm going to add something else there: commercialization.
Right.
Right, because it's far too long we've been doing this thing for hobby and not for a living. And I know Mama Culture, Rennie, have been pushing that for quite a while. But I could give you an example, right? Straight off the bat. At the department, we have the ring games and the traditional games documented. We're now in conversation where we're asking the sports department and the Ministry of Education to take this documentation and make it a part of your physical education program.
Beautiful.
I have nothing against athletics and cricket and football, but I think at the grade 1, kindergarten, grade 2, from the primary school level, we can incorporate some of these traditional games and ring games within the physical education program. So once you start from that level, you know the preservation is going to be there from
Definitely.
then. Go on. Again, I am all for reenactment. I mean, you have two dramatists here, writers, Jekyll and Nisha. I'm all for it. I could see how we can make some dollars from it. I mean, because at the end of the day, now everybody wants to see how they could make a living from what they're doing. I mean, as much as we're talking preservation and what's not, people would pay thousands of dollars for your culture because a lot of people are now trying to buy into the Caribbean culture. Yeah. I mean, I've seen it every day. I mean, but yeah, again, package it because nothing is wrong with Nisha or Jekyll writing a production on our cotton industry, what used to happen, or all the way of catching minibus. That is a document that we have at the department. And then, okay, this Friday night, we want to take this to Mangoes. You know what I mean? So all of a sudden, they're having a drink, a flash mob, or whatever you just call it, out of nowhere. Bam! A reenactment, 10, 15 minutes. You understand where I'm coming from?
Yes.
So we have this culture where we figure that, you know, people are going to comfort. Because I remember long ago with my sister being in Odd and Nam as a little boy, people used to kick down the door to get into Peace Memorial Hall. Now the theater groups can hardly see 300 people. Now, is it a case where they should just sit back and say, hey, people are going to come to Peace Memorial? They now have to now see how they could package this and bring the people. I mean, because long ago, that's what theater was about. It was a territory thing. I mean, everybody wanted to come to see their people, see their groups, see you understand? So from the education level now, as I said, we need to start digitizing some of these documentations we have. Sit down with some of these historians, get the information, and then see now how, as a creative person now, we can now present it to the different institution, learning institution, and make it attractive. Because you remember, you're competing with a lot of other things that we mentioned earlier. So bringing it to life in terms of what is happening now. I mean, it can't be the same old education approach because we now see what is happening, especially with now COVID-19. I mean, there's a lot of restrictions and a lot of things. One of the things that we have to pay very close attention to when we're talking education and things is intellectual property. And I mean, owning, and I think Jekyll mentioned it, owning and some sense of belonging and all these things. So when you're teaching it or when you're presenting it in the institutions, you have to also give the students, give the people some sense of belonging in terms of ownership. I mean, not just for who we are, but who are the important writers, because there are a lot of documents out there that we don't know who write them or who they belong to, which is also important. I mean, which is critical because we read a lot of stuff and don't know who the authors are. Yeah. So I am guilty of that. There's a lot of things I read and I don't know who wrote them. I even don't care to know who wrote them, which is sad because I remember studying in Jamaica, just like Jekyll, when they ask you to go and read a book or identify a book. My professor came in and he didn't ask me anything about the book. He said, who write it? What year? Which village? Which community? And when you could answer that, he sent you out the class. Well, then you don't know the book. You understand? So when we're teaching these things, I mean, we have to do it in a holistic way, right? And for the creators and for the writers out there and for people who have things, let's now think about the packaging of it, right? Let's think about the commercialization of it because I want people to start making money.
Yeah, Randy, before we move on, you mentioned taking it to them instead of waiting for them to come for it. And if you notice in Trinidad, even though the pandemic is on, they still had their film festival digitally. You know, these things are still in the theater. What do you think we can do in terms of utilizing technology to still send our cultural packages out there without having to meet in person?
Well, it's a discussion that we're having at the department, and I want people to understand that because people have been reaching out to the Department of Culture, and I mean, when and how and what, why you're not doing this, why you're not doing this, but the policies of the Department of Culture is not as easy or as the same as an NGO or a statutory body. There are certain things that we have to follow, so we just can't jump and say we're going to do this and we're going to do that, right? But
And sometimes it's not for the government. We have this idea: government must. But you have to, or you don't own it.
Yeah.
The artist, the writer, and so on. You have to own your things. And this is one of the weaknesses that we have. There are people who have written plays, and there's nothing on it.
Yeah.
We started a national archives. You see this music you play on the radio station, and young men do a record, but they only did it because they were in a show and they get their parents' money, and they're not even concerned about that is an asset, an intellectual property asset. And there are archives, there's a sound archives in St. Vincent, where you need to get that registered. We have a lot of problems with all artists that they have passed away or in the latter years, and they have nothing to show. They haven't collected any royalties, nor anything, because they didn't take ownership of the intellectual property. So that is one of the weaknesses that they're working on now, and we have to try to get the country to understand what that means. And we've had so many artists, it's not until either they are on the almost deathbed before they would say, oh, well, I wrote this, and I gave it to this person, and they're given away.
Yeah, and just to continue the thing. So I wanted to get that part out the door, right? That the Department of Culture is not somewhere where we could just jump and just do whatever. That's why there's NGOs, there's different associations, there's statutory bodies. And I mean, they're the ones that have a little bit more leeway. I mean, what we do, we encourage persons to come in. We could help you in a technical way. We could advise you. We could give you information, right? But I know, taking off that hat now, there are a lot of persons who are trying and who are willing to do stuff virtually. There's something every Friday and Saturday at the Believers Club. And I mean, I was a part of that. I think then Nisha, then Jekyll now is a part of that. But I will be very honest, right? And Miss B mentioned something. A lot of our practitioners don't see the value of these things unless there's a dollar value in their hands, right? Yes, the private entities in Trinidad would invest, right? But it is a bit harder here because we as practitioners never see the value of packaging the product and selling it. So a lot of the business houses would not want to buy it.
Yeah.
That is just the reality. We have to be very honest. When Nisha from Focus Entertainment is bringing something, she is bringing something to the table. Not everybody operates on that level, and I'm not going to sit here and not be honest about it. The other side of it is that there are persons who have came to the department and even at the CDC, which I'm a board member of, and want to do virtual things. But one of the things that is plaguing us currently is our intellectual property. They're not copyright. You know what I mean? They're not protected. So you go on a virtual space and you do a full concert, right? Jekyll in concert with all of his songs. And he's not protected. Somebody in England or Asia take that song and own it. What happens there?
Yeah.
Right? Now, there are a lot of other persons who figure that, let me go by Miss B. Miss B would put it on first. There's API, there's VC3, there's IKTV. But how much of us are bombarding these people to want to do things on a regular? You have to see it as an investment. So Rodney Small wanted to do a virtual thing, whether there's $1 or there's $1,000, I am doing it for my investment, for my brand, to keep my brand existing. Because everybody is waiting on it. Because I hear people saying, when the pandemic over, everybody's waiting. You can't wait because then at the end of the day, when the floodgates open, we are going to be rushing in.
Yeah.
You understand? Yeah. So there are persons who are trying to do things virtually, and I want to make an appeal to the business side of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You have to support. You have to support. But then the flip side is that practitioners, whichever camera, you have to have something that the business society would want to buy.
Thank you, Annie. Ms. Matisse, we're talking about packaging our culture and our heritage, and we're back to how we sell this information to our students, to the educators, and preserve our culture.
You guys, you're the ones to sell it. You're the ones who have to push it. You see, and sometimes I get this feeling is that this is the teachers here, that's the ministry there, and this is us there. This is Vincentian here.
Correct.
We are the ones who have to want to do it. It fascinates me no end. If you look at who were the traditional filmmakers in the United States, and you look at the people who are producing today, who are directing today, they were not directing and producing 10 years ago, 15 years ago. You can know that's a George Lucas film. You can know, and you keep on, if you go back and look at the things that George Lucas and them thought of, and where that media that was used only for film. When Michael Jackson did that thing with the Egyptian, they didn't want to put it on for him, and he went to BT with that morphing where he changes. And that's the same technology that George Lucas used in Pirates of the Caribbean when in the night you saw the skeletons. So how much money do you think he made off of Pirates of the Caribbean again? So you see, you have to, as producers and as teachers, and these are the people that the film people go and look for, they're going to all these little places and they look for this, they look for a young man that has an idea, everybody thinks it's off the wall. And he sits with producers and they work out. And then we do a famous thing. When movie finish, you run out to cinema. You look at every name you see there, at those credits, and that's how those people make their dollar as a cultural practitioner. You look on evenings, you see Jake Tapper say, "This is my latest book." And you see the other young man, "This is my latest book." Don Lemon just wrote a book, "This is my latest book." They're inventing all the things for Apple iPhone, but they're still writing books.
Yep.
So let us not get too overwhelmed and romanticizing the digital platforms. You also have to publish. And those books are books, and they becoming bestsellers on this list and that list. And sometimes you have to start and don't say, "Well, I'm going to put everything on this." Oh no, the market is now so bigger. It used to be you can only target there because that's North America. Now you have to target, it's the world that you're targeting.
It's a smaller place.
It's a smaller place. That's why we did those book of poems, which I didn't wait on the government to go give me money to do a book of poems. Use the channel. The channels are there. Yeah. Get 12 Vincentian poets. It's in English, it's in Spanish. Why you want it in Spanish? Then we are in that atmosphere. We are in that part of the hemisphere. We are in the Americas, where more people speak Spanish than they speak English. So you have to also be appealing to that market. And if you know how they want to know more about us, because people are beginning to know more about St. Vincent, why we are exposed, we are sitting on the Security Council. So it's not all about reading papers and hearing before and hearing after and so on. It's about this country, who are these people? I wonder why. Is there something to go there? What is, you have to fill that. And that is filled. If you notice, I always pay attention to the countries that get on that council. What happens afterwards? The flood that comes from investment. When you get investment, the industries have to come up to meet it, because we can't run a factory of 5,000 people. You cannot compete with Bangladesh and Vietnam for making clothes. We don't have that. So we have to use the property that we have, which is the intellectual property, which is the creative properties that we have, to generate that new wealth in this new era. Okay? I'm passionate about it.
I know, I can feel the energy and I love it. Miss Hope, as an educator, I know you would have a lot to say about where we're at with the conversation. Let's hear you.
Diplomatically speaking. Oh my, this is a touchy topic for me. Let me just begin by saying like Mrs. Batiste mentioned, you start with what you have. And I'm a positive thinker, so I start with the students in front of me. And I have this quote that I keep saying to them all the time, that a lot of things that we don't do is because of our fears, in life. So I try to teach my students, to empower them. Like this year for theater arts, I told them I don't want to hear nothing about any person who has been sending their stuff off to CXC for the last 5 years. Go and look for new things. granted, I would guide them. So, I have students who excited. I had like 5 groups wanting to do NAM, and the 9 morning celebrations, because ever so often you find the children, they want to do things that are safe. Or they may ask somebody who did it the year before, and they may say, oh, I did Miss Hope, and they want to do Miss Hope, but nobody explores the other options. And that is what I do. Because the truth of the matter is, as a teacher, you have your students. Then there's your head of department. You have to convince your head of department. Who have to convince administration? Who has to convince the ministry? You understand? So if I have to sit and wait on all of those steps on the ladder, I would never get anywhere. So I start with my students, the ones who I can influence the most and channel. And I am proud to say that even in my outside of the classroom, as an entrepreneur, when I do productions, some of these same students are my stage managers. You understand? Rodney could attest to this because he hired us 1 year, and I know he got value for his money. You understand? So for me, I think you have to start somewhere. And if you're talking educating, is the students. So I can't be bothered by up there where I really have little influence with my students.
Let me answer very quick. And it went out of my head. One thing that is plaguing us in the education system is that we don't see the importance of culture within the school curriculum, right? And it's not even from the ministry standpoint, it's even teachers, right, who really don't care or like culture. So they tell you you're obstructing classroom time and all these sort of things. And that is the reality. That is the harsh reality here in St. Vincent, right? So even though you want to take them to be a part of PRISPAF, nobody wants to prepare the kids. You understand? Even though you want them to be a part of the Hairouna festival in Victoria Park, nobody wants to take the kids to that. You understand where I'm coming from? So until we see the arts, the creative arts, culture and creative arts as important as math and English,
because
then we
have been prejudiced.
Yes. And I remember when I went to Jamaica, there was this young lady, right? She wanted to be a doctor, but she was also a dancer. And the father told her, here we're going on. There's no more scholarships to being a doctor now, but there's scholarships to be a dancer. She went to dance school, and while she was doing dance school, she was doing a moja while she's doing medicine. Now, she's a professional dancer and a doctor.
Wonderful.
You understand where I'm coming from? There wasn't any more scholarships to being a doctor, but there was scholarships to being a dancer. So until we bridge that gap and see the importance of the creative and cultural industries within the school curriculum, we're going to be at the same issue that we're having day by day, because we're not being able to. You know what I mean? I'm sure Miss Hope probably won't want to say it on camera, but she probably have her own fight going on at her institution where to get the kids
It's not new, Rod. It's just 20 years ago.
Exactly.
I had that fight. I had people write things to say about instructional time and so on. And one of the persons is today the head of the Ministry of Culture, Maxine Brown. They made Maxine cry buckets of tears because if she doesn't return to the classroom, what will happen, and this and that, and because I wanted her to for dancing. You see, we sometimes misplace our priorities in a particular way, and we have yes, you have policy, and you must follow policy, and you must. But where is the policy relative to the other aspects of education? There are other aspects to education. And if you, like I said, that if they're looking for examples, go and look at Angela Bassett, go and look at Jennifer Hudson, go and look at all Denzel Washington, go and look at all these people who they rose to this prominence, and they will tell you which school they went to. The young man that just played in he died recently from cancer. He played in
Chadwick.
Right. Yeah. He was a mentee of Denzel Washington in school. All these people, they went to drama school, but we crowd every cinema to go and see them. And we think they didn't just, that had to be honed, that skill had to be, and it had to be done by a teacher. So they had to go to the schools that are set up for that. We don't have drama schools here, but we have people who are equipped in this part of the century to make people like that. And we have to try to look beyond English language, English literature, biology, geography, history. Now, nobody's saying you can't do that, because that's giving you an all-round They make you a rounded student, but you must not denigrate the culture.
The
In the arts,
prejudice.
the
The
arts
prejudice,
students, you know,
the arts.
when you
But
can't
the
do this,
arts
you do
are
the
important
arts.
the arts are important to life and to living, and we will be forever importing rather than creating and making, because we're just not paying that level of attention. And we need to all these things. Who you think make them? Who make my dress?
Creative person.
Who designed the material? Who did make the design on it? So we have to inculcate that new spirit in people also who are in the policy making. That look at this. We have to move. There's a little island, only 133 square miles. Huh? So we have to make use of every single facet of what is given to us, the intellectual power.
Yes.
And that's where the arts come in. It's in giving you that intellectual power.
Thank you, Ms. Matisse. And Dr. Fraser, I know by now you're eager to jump in. And I want you to also touch on the history that we teach. How much of it is local history when we talk about history in the school systems?
No. I have about 1,000 things I want to say about the discussion so far.
Yeah.
But one I'm very much interested in is education. Now, theater, arts, and so on, you have some flexibility. But when you're down to, your usual traditional subjects, you run into a problem. For one, and I'll give you an example. Two different persons came to me on different occasions. They have an interest in history. But if I go and I do a degree in history, what could I do? All I could do is teach. And the problem with education is that, for one, we are tied to CXC. So that from the time you go into school, the teachers, I need to complete that syllabus, and you're tied to that. So there is a flexibility to, even as a teacher, develop certain things and relate it to your country. And when you look at the CXC syllabus, there's very little about these small islands. And I was so pleased when about 2 weeks ago, somebody who's involved in CXC phoned me and said that she was having a discussion with someone, and they realized that the whole Garifuna issue is one which isn't touched by CXC, and they're looking for information because they want to build that into CXC. And we had a discussion as to how limited CXC is. I mean, I've been trying to get a couple books on the CXC. I can't get it. I'm not sure you do it. So, but apart from that, a student goes into school, and the parents who spent a lot of money in educating the children, you have to get a job. So you want to go into dancing. They don't see dancing as being very important. That's the point that Rodney was making there. So we have to deal with that. The other thing is that even though some teachers are trying to move away from it, we are still too tied to the blackboard. And the students today, they're on social media and TV and all sorts of things, and to go into, and you're looking at the blackboard and so on, they become very bored. And I'm hoping that with this pandemic, and the fact that you have to try and find creative ways of teaching now, that when this thing is over, we don't go back to where we were before. So there are some challenges, and even when you look at the international media, and the question came up about films. I think Ms. Batiste mentioned that, and going back to my days in school, and on a Saturday we all flocked to the market. And there's a Tarzan movie. Tarzan is this white man who goes into Africa, and he is able to do what the Africans who live there cannot do. He's swinging from trees to trees. And we as students, we're identifying with Tarzan rather than with the other people. So that whole film thing there was a sort of mindset. Today, we have new film producers and so on. That is changing quite a lot, but traditionally that was so. And when a young person gets up in the morning, he looks at social media or probably at TV. I'm not too sure if he looks at TV what he looks at, or he or she what they look at. On social media, what do they look at? Because these are important. They carry messages in a particular way. So we have to deal with that. And this is part of the discussion as teachers and as educators. You need to deal with how could we use that space in order to bring these things out. So there are really a lot of problems there. Now, in the 70s and 80s, when there were a lot of NGOs around, there was something called popular education, where you took education to the streets. And I think that is very important, given the fact that today we are so tied to CXC. And I don't know if you'll get those days back. The theater of the street, the culture, and education generally is on the street. Because somebody goes through the whole system, they take CXC and they go on. But there's a lot which they had missed. And there are a lot of people who had not gone through that process who are still there waiting to be educated. They're not going to go back into the traditional school, and we have to find some way of reaching those people. So there are really a lot of issues and that we have to deal with. And we have to try to find out how do we get beyond it, because there's no sense saying we should do that when every day you come up against a lot of obstacles. And unless you could deal or know how to get around those obstacles, we're not going to go very far. There are a few individuals who might be able to make it depending on what they're doing and so on. But the traditional teacher in the classroom is going to have difficulties unless we find a way around that.
And Dr. Fraser, something you mentioned before I move to you, Jacob, I'm coming. But the parents, they're an important part of a child's education. And I don't think parents are really ready for a child to choose theater arts or some cultural subject over one of the perceived better subjects. And I'm wondering if it has anything to do with the number of jobs that we have available in these areas. If you check our priority list annually, you'd hardly ever see positions in the creative industry or in history. Do you think that's something that may need to change in order to change the mindset so that people could pursue the arts?
Well, yeah, because I mean there are limitations, but as far as I'm concerned, regardless, I always encourage people. I said, do what you are interested in. Because once you're interested in something, you're able to get around it. I mean, as a teacher, there are many things I could go into, not only teaching. And but parents that would always be an obstacle. And you have to find some way of dialoguing with parents. I also find that what we need to do, starting from maybe last year in primary school, is to have discussions with students as to what the possibilities are. Because a student comes into secondary school and they know about the traditional things that they would do, law or medicine or so on. But there are a number of other things. And increasingly these days, with the technology, there's so much more things that we could do. So people need to be educated, not only the students, but also the parents as to what the possibilities are. And we have to look down the road that the limitations now are not going to continue. They're going to be opening all. And with the technology, somebody from the remotest part of St. Vincent anyway could find themselves going very far once they're able to use the technology and they know what opportunities exist out there. So there's a discussion which has to go on, and we have to move beyond the kind of limitations we face at the moment.
Thank you, Doc. Jekyll, as a young person, what do you see can be done differently in the school systems to preserve our history and our culture?
Okay, so sitting here, I'm just realizing how grateful I should be and how privileged I am where culture and the art is concerned. I was sitting here and I'm listening to different speakers and making their contributions. And I'm looking back now as early as my primary school education in the Barley Anglican School, coming through Bishop's College. And I have to say I'm very grateful because I remember in primary school, teacher at the time, now principal, Miss Sharon Dalton, we entered every choral speaking competition there were in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I remember the first time I came to the Peace Memorial Hall, I was blown away. I was sitting at the hall a few days ago and realizing how the hall has just become a place for me now. And remembering the first time I stepped foot in that hall, I was like, St. Vincent has such a place, right? I was so blown away. In Bishop's College, I remember as well, we had when I founded the Heritage Club a while there, but prior to that, I know we had several competitions in school. I know we had the English department at that time had a colloquial word of the week. So the Spanish unit within department, forgive me for the inaccurate terminologies at the moment. I remember we used to have the Spanish word of the week, the English word of the week, and the colloquial word of the week. Or if it's not a word, it would be a phrase. I remember as well we had school quiz where they had several categories, and one of the categories were cultural expressions. So they gave us a whole set of cultural expressions that the colloquial sayings that we would do. We'd say moon around till they catch a man, but from the zombie on the coffin, these sort of things. And so they gave us the colloquial sayings, and they translated them. And one of the wrongs for that wrong was they would throw them at us, and they would either throw them in the colloquial style or expression, or they would show them in the English form. We have to be able now in dialect or in English, and we have to be able now to think on the feet. And that I remember that was a wave throughout the school because everybody was preparing now when they walk the company here. Somebody using Patata cat lay body black. We I not see heart and grieve. At that moment in the school, everybody was folk because we trying now to remember all of them so that our farm could emerge victorious. But to answer the question before me, I would say a change of culture is what is needed for culture. And in this dispensation, I'm going to change the terminology from culture because I've seen in St. Vincent how the word culture has have had us limited. When we think culture, immediately we think of beating a drum in front market or putting on a piece of cloth, and that's another issue I have a problem with, right? But I'm gonna change the terminology and say what could be done to advance the culture and creative industries. And what we have to first understand is that the culture and creative industries is dynamic, it is multifaceted, and it is unique by its very nature. So in St. Vincent, we have a tendency to play a blame game. All of we, myself included, I would sit there and talk, but at the end of the day, I play the blame game too. Where because we think education, we jump straight at the teachers and the ministry, and we said they have to do the work. But if in this 21st century, and we're talking post-pandemic, 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 again, we're still waiting. Post-pandemic, the excuse this time is the pandemic, post-pandemic. But if we truly are to capitalize and exploit the orange economy, a multi-sectoral approach is needed. Um, integrated, cross-cutting, cross-ministry approach is needed. Yep, we have to understand that for this thing to take flight, it is beyond the Department of Culture. It is beyond the Ministry of Education. It is beyond Nisha Hope, a teacher in the classroom. It is beyond X, Y, and Z. It takes all of us because there is not a one size fit all, or a one. This is not a one answer question because there will be different answers for the different facets, the different arms that need to be playing for this thing to become a reality. So there are several things that need to be done from the Ministry of Education perspective, and they will be more fixed and more focused on policy. There are several things that could be done within the school because, take for example, going back to my Bishop College experience, we know because of the way certain things are somehow. There are some things we just have to accept for what they are. Currently, our governance style is a particular way. So, we have certain hierarchy, things have to go through the principal and through the ministry. And currently, we are using the CSET model. So, certain things have to be done a particular way. But at the same time, it all goes back to as an educator, as a practitioner, as a Vincentian, as a mother, as a father, you in yourself understanding and seeing the need and importance for a child or for a young person or for any Vincentian that matter to own what it is to be Vincentian. If you want to, you would be creative, right? Yes, we did our instructional time in Bishop's College. Yes, we followed the syllabus, but there were opportunities created for us to learn. I remember after the Garifuna program was so excited that everything in school for me was Garifuna. So I would come in the class, boy, I would come in the classroom and I would start singing the national anthem in Garifuna. And my history teacher at the point, Mrs. Afisha Adams Clark, because we start at Bishop's because we started the syllabus, from Form 3. And before that, we'd follow the national things, by the ministry, the curriculum development unit. And I remember she right away gave me an opportunity to teach my class, my peers, created a whole unit at that time for me to teach my peers what I learned from the summer program. So, reiterating, a change of culture is needed for culture. We have to change the way, especially post-pandemic, since that is the excuse now, post-pandemic, the way we operate, the way we think, the way we move, the way we call things. Because it's no longer culture now, loosely. It's no longer culture now. It's no longer this because persons are realizing that the notion of thought and work or creative and industry are no longer mutually exclusive. So we now have to adapt. We don't have to move forward, realize it. And in St. Vincent, we're at a particular development crossroads. And sometimes we argue that we're this and we're that, and we don't even see the opportunities that come from it. Yes, we would have dropped the ball on a particular thing back then. Maybe, okay, we dropped the ball on documentation back then, right? Written. But now, the pandemic and this dispensation has presented us with a new form of documentation. Are we going to drop the ball again on that? Are we going to drop the ball complaining that, oh, we didn't document it in writing when there's now a new means, a new form, a new way for us to document it? That's my input in a nutshell.
Thank you so
Want to
much.
speed forward, right? But
We're going to take a break shortly, but you go ahead.
but two things that was mentioned that is very critical, extremely critical if we're talking the creative and cultural industries, which myself and Jekyll have done studies there. You asked Mr. Fraser about the job opportunities and what's not. But one thing that we were doing at the unit, at the department, is we're trying to do some comparative assessment. Oh, this is how Jamaica doing it, or Trinidad doing it. And this is my personal opinion. I think it was very dangerous because our people are not the same as Trinidad and Jamaica.
Definitely.
So I said to the heads, listen, don't forget about that. But we start from scratch and come up based off of our context, right? Mm-hmm. While doing that, we realized that, and Mama Culture will tell you there's a draft cultural policy, and we're trying to do some amendments on it because we don't have any structural mechanism in place to make stars.
That's right.
I will repeat that again. We don't have any structure or mechanism, not just from the department or from a government standpoint, that makes stars. When you see a 5-year-old or 4-year-old playing the piano in Taiwan or wherever, that's all that 4-year-old going to be doing for the rest of their life. You understand where I'm coming from? In as very close Jamaica, when they see an athlete at age 9 or 11, they pull that athlete JC Foster one time. You understand where I'm coming from? Yes. Now, while we're talking education now, we have to start talking the business model for the creative and cultural industries. Mm-hmm. That's why we have so much horrors now when our artists now who are happen to bust at a very late age, right? So, for example, Rodney Small bust. But I don't understand the industry that I'm a part of because nobody never teach me. So when we start talking all these wonderful intellectual properties and all these copyright and all these, it is very foreign to us. Yeah. So when we're talking education, all of that needs to be implemented in it, where, you identify a young talent. All right, focus entertainment one time. You know what I mean? Nisha in her program now have to make sure that you could make that individual, a holistic individual, where although you're doing your acting, you still have to do little English here and there, little maths here and there. But that is the environment you're a part of. You understand where I'm coming from? And until we understand, because Nisha gave a very perfect example, and I think it fly over our heads. With her students, outside of being the teacher, she's also looking for opportunities and avenues for them to make money from what they're doing as a means of what? Motivation. Now, we have to talk transition. So when all Nisha is doing, they're at Form 5, Form 4, what happens after they leave Nisha Hope? Right? Now, Nisha could attest to this. Everybody wants to go on a stage, and the reality is that's not where the money is, I could tell you that. Everybody wants to go on a stage, and we have to move away from that. Not everybody is going to pick up a mic. Not everybody is going to be on stage. You understand? Look, Nisha and I would never thought I would have been a consultant or an assessor. We just assess something for St. Lucia, a standard that they're trying to implement in their program to be assessed, so persons could be assessed and get some level of certification, and then you're being paid for that. So if we're talking education, we have to go full 100 on it. right? If we're talking job, it doesn't mean that if you're doing the creative and cultural industries programs here, that means you have to work here.
And Ronnie, you've brought us to our next point. When we get back, we will talk about mentorship, the importance of mentorship as a creative and as someone who may want to do a project, a history project, or something big that represents St. Vincent. Let's take a break and hear from our sponsors who allow us to have this wonderful discussion. See you soon.
District Stairs is making it a September to remember. We're offering introductory prices for laminate and vinyl flooring and baseboards and trim for the entire month. These luxurious looks at affordable prices are easy to install and come in an array of colors suitable for every room in your home. Act now to get free shipping. Check out our website at districtstairs.com or call us 289-200-7649. We're also on WhatsApp, Facebook, and Instagram. Remember, District Stairs.
Eldorado Super Bingo. Bingo tickets play for opportunity to win US $25,000 on Sunday, 29th August 2021. Beginning at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. 13 chances to win. 6 US $1,000 cash prizes. 4 $2,000 US cash prizes. 3,000 US cash prizes. And 1 5,000 US cash prize. Games will be played on www.bingomaker.com. Login and access information would be provided upon purchase. Proceeds from this event goes towards a worthy cause. August 29th, Eldorado Super Bingo.
Isn't it good to know that no matter where you are, you're covered? Covered by a company owned by Vincentians that understands your unique insurance needs. At Metrocint General Insurance Company, we've invested 50 years of service to guarantee that you have the peace of mind that you deserve. When it comes to motor vehicle, property, employer's liability, business insurance, and much more, we've got you covered. Our professional and friendly staff understands your needs and ensures you understand your options. Metrocint General Insurance Company.
My Digicel presents HIT by a how-to. Here is how you can purchase a plan in the My Digicel app and get instant access to all of our apps. It's simple. Let me show you how. From your home screen, find the plans and bundles icon in the lower left corner of your screen. Tap it to see your available plans and bundles. You can choose between a Prime bundle with data and talk or pick a plan from the Available Plans tab. Find the plan that's best for you. Then hit confirm and you're ready to go. With your new plan, you may have access to more of our apps. Find them in the More from Digicel section and hit download for each of our new apps. You can also upgrade your current plan or bundle under the Active Plans section of your homepage. Excited to try it out? Download the My Digicel app today. My Digicel, better together.
Jeez, I eat some crazy.
And now we will talk about the internship for young creatives and any young Vincentian who wants to do something that makes us uniquely Vincentian. Miss Hope, tell us, how important is mentorship and where can young people find the mentors? Do they randomly walk up to the ministry? Do they go into schools and look for the theater arts teacher? Do they look for the history teachers? What would you advise?
I think first, as if you consider yourself a mentor, you need to put yourself out there. Because the truth is, sometimes, especially in our industry, like Rodney mentioned loosely a while ago, you know, in Jamaica and all of these different places, if you see a youngster with talent, you go and you pick them up and you pull them out. So for instance, my company, we do talent scouting. Unfortunately, because as a practitioner who has a degree and I have to eat and feed my daughter and my granddaughter, I mean, I have to work. So teaching is my first choice. So it has limited me in terms of being able to push my company forward, that thrust of or having a talent agency and scouting for talents and training them, because that's where I am most actively a mentor. From time to time, I mean, most recently, we would have positioned ourselves in terms of putting information out there, advertising for talents. So we have been getting interest from people of different varying ages, which is interesting. You find more mature people want to join something as opposed to young persons.
Wow.
You know, their interest is different. And you have to wonder if, okay, let's say someone in their early 30s, they like to sing or they want to dance and they want to act, and they come to you and you're like, how do I begin? Because sometimes it's easier to work with someone who's younger. You know, they say train up the child in the way they should grow. It can't bend the tree when it's old.
Yes.
So you have to consider those things. But the I would say you can go to the Ministry of Culture. I know that the persons there know persons who are mentors in our industry, because our industry isn't very big. We know everyone, if you want to put it that way. So look, search. Focus Entertainment is there. I know RS Academy is there for music. I don't think there are any others.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah.
Miss Hope. And Ronnie, you spoke about this. You touched on it already, and you mentioned some of what Miss Hope just mentioned. How can young artists, especially people who want to enter Soca Monarch and the various carnival competitions, how do you think they can get mentorship?
Well, the CDC is there, and I think a lot of people ignore the D in CDC. That's a development, and I mean CDC have some work to in terms of marketing that element. But the CDC, those are always open to persons who want to enter that industry, the carnival industry. But I don't know. I just end up mashing a lot of cons, I don't feel a lot of the young people want mentorship, and I'm being very honest. Here, there's some who would come from the beginning, and when you start sitting with them and telling them what is expected of them and start giving them, they don't see them again, because everybody think that it's an overnight thing. The success is overnight. They don't understand that it takes a matter of time. You know what I mean? A matter of grooming. You know what I mean? But yeah, a lot of the young people just figure that it's going to be quick and fast. So from the time you start doing your mentorship program with them, halfway through it, you start losing them because it's not happening fast enough for them. You know what I mean? That is part of the challenge. But a lot of mentorship programs out there. I mean, a lot of persons who are into mentoring. For example, me, I have the academy there, and as Nisha said, I have people as old as 49, 50. You know what I mean? I have young
Never too
people
old
too.
to learn.
Yeah, I have young people too. But the thing is, as mentors, we have to be careful too, right? And I'm going to say this, it might be a very unpopular statement. You as a mentor have to have results. You have to have things to show. You can't be a mentor and you never really have nothing to show. You know what I mean? And that's one thing that is going to bring people to your establishment or to you. You know what I mean? They see that you're doing it and you're doing it good, and there's a level of success, you know what I mean? And you have a level of understanding. So they're going to come to you for that mentorship. Also being a mentor, you have to also keep yourself relevant. Keep reading, keep updating, keep learning. You know what I mean? Because you could never stop learning. I'm sure Miss B would always message my phone, yeah, looking at this thing and I like the lighting and so it's always there. But I would want to encourage the parents. I mean, if you have a creative mind in your household, I think that's where the mentorship starts. Because sometimes we see our young people might knocking up two ball in the house and figure, hey, there's noise, but you never know what is happening there.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a lot of success stories from that particular age. So the mentorship can start from there. The support system can start from there, and then you move on. But, you know what I mean, to the mentors out there who are listening, I mean, we need to do a little bit more work. I mean, have a little bit more patience, because I just get impatient sometimes.
Right. And I was just going to ask, because you said sometimes the mentees, they get frustrated when they don't see results. But do
Yeah.
you think that the mentors also get frustrated when they don't see results? And we have to bear in mind how unkind our society can be. And when they're not producing, they sometimes may get frustrated. What is recommended when the results aren't showing and both the mentor and the mentee are frustrated with the progress?
Create it. created, because I could only tell you about me. I mean, for me, I didn't figure I was getting enough bookings or the type of bookings I wanted. So I created my own event. And in my own event, I could create the results for my students. So Steel Expressions is now celebrating 10 years. And I could tell you for every year, there are more than 4 or 5 young persons who are on it, who are inspired by it. Now, when you look at them, I can't talk to them. Not jokingly though, I mean, they're doing their thing. Amnesia students got the opportunity. So even though you are frustrated yourself as a mentor and your students are also frustrated, you need to now be creative, pull back. You know, sometimes you have to leave it alone, pull back and try to see, okay, what approach I could take, what new approach I could take up. I mean, what can I do? So for me, what I did, I created the opportunities. I created my own event. So I know for sure, if Nisha don't book one of my students, I would book one of my students.
Wonderful. Dr. Fraser?
We ask is, what is the understanding of mentorship on the part of the person who wants to be mentored and also the mentor? Because I'm speaking from experience where I've been asked on about 2 or 3 occasions to be mentored to a particular, and I thought there was something in place. And when I went there was no clear understanding of what was taking place. And I suspect that the person who wants to be mentored comes in there with certain expectations, which might not necessarily be realistic or what it is. So there has to be an understanding of what is expected from the mentor and also from the student. And I think unless you have clarity on it, you will always have frustrations, because people go expecting all sorts of things which are not really realistic. So I think that aspect of it needs to be
Very important. Yes, Ms. Hope.
On the other hand, there's the other side of the spectrum, in that, for example, when I left the Ministry of Culture, I knew that people only looked forward to Carnival Awards. Carnival Awards. Carnival is the premier national cultural festival, but there are other things that are happening. So I knew that the people were doing poetry, but people weren't paying attention. So I said, I'm going to create this organization. So I called Blazer Williams and I said, Blazer, I want to create this little NGO for us to look at young people coming up and follow them. They won't even know, they're not even aware that we are following them, and see what they're producing and use what power we have to create awards. And so I created this award, Lifetime Achievement Award for literature. And the person that we awarded it to was Doc Adams, got the first one. Then Lifetime Achievement Award for music was Ken Iles. Now, Ken Iles may have gotten a little something there, but you have to give people something that comes from their own country and make them feel this is of national importance. Because why the United States got Grammys, Latin America got this other place. So what do you have to help to make people feel that sense of importance and that it is appreciated all these years? He keeps playing this pan and you just clap, or you chuck a $500. You have to make them feel that they have made this significant contribution, and ask them to write out their whole history. When you see the things that people have done in this country, but nobody ever thought, let me create an award. And working along, I called Mrs. Darren at UWI. I said, let's work along on this, and created the book fair together. I'm a graduate of UE. I make your contribution in different ways, and this was my contribution having left. And we worked together to create for UE. That year we started this. UE got the prize for the Center of Excellence for the Creative Arts. And so we continued. When the chorale said that nobody had actually given them an award, and they were around for 60 years of national significance. Then you look at, what is his name, the Fireman Hooper, when he did the triple, 1, 2, 3, soca, raga, soca, and calypso. You have to, it's not just for the CDC. And we tend to forget, maybe we too colonialist. We always look to, instead of look in and do that. So these are the things. And from that, you had young poets who come and ask, because they heard we published some poetry. So people now start asking, could you help to publish? And so you got an opportunity to work with them and tell them what is needed. People start with the book fair, we wanted to get out to the people who are writing, and people didn't even know that there are these people who are writing and have these books in St. Vincent. And so that book fair is now what we call national, and then a national in Canada. Who is an author, a publisher, saw it and said to Yui, look, I'm prepared to give a monetary award for poetry, and I'm prepared to give a monetary award for fiction. So you have to, as somebody in the field, I think a lot more of us who have had the opportunity to work with people all across the spectrum of culture and the creative arts and so, to start to make that kind of sacrifice. And I look around and I see, who is in this academy for the Oscars? And I say, so what happened to us? Why we can't dream? Why we can't create the same atmosphere so that the young people also can get an opportunity to have something nationally? You need to put something on your CV. I won this national award for poetry. Look at that Dylan Oliver. He was writing these poems in this newspaper all the time, and some people knew who he was. And getting that award, make him, oh yes, I'm going to write. He has a book of poems. So we ourselves, we have to look at it as building this national fabric in the industry ourselves as well. We don't have to wait for somebody from outside to go get him a Grammy. We give our own Grammy.
Our own.
Right?
Definitely. Jekyll, you've heard such rich knowledge from your fellow panelists on mentorship. What do you have to say as a young creative?
Yes, I think I would speak from the perspective of a mentee, someone who would have been mentored by several persons in the industry. I remember when I started out in drama in Bishop's College, it was Mr. Martin Kwashi, Mr. Nigel Morgan, Sean Frederick, Maxine Brown. And I was looking back there and say, wait, but my introduction to the arts actually started with dance. Because I remember at that point, the cultural officers used to be coming to the primary schools, and I was introduced first to Clidana Peters, and then I don't know what happened. Remember at that point, I wouldn't know the workings of government and civil servants could be moved, and I'm now appreciating that now. But I started up with Clidana Peters, and then it went to Maxine Brown, and from there I started meeting new people. I say it begins first with understanding and owning that you're creative. You have to want it. So are you just someone who likes acting, or someone who likes to dance, or someone who likes to sing, or someone who can sing, or someone who can dance? How do you identify yourself? Are you creative? Do you want this? Because it makes no sense. You just want it for a particular reason, and as Rodney saying, you approach the mentor and then you're not ready yet for what mentorship requires from you. It's a two-way. You have to be able to give something to get something. However, though, I would say that because our country geographically is small, and maybe as well our political history is a small one, our government has taken a very active role in public administration. It has been so for several years. So that now would have led to the creation of varying festivals and institutions and initiatives to sort of own and develop culture. But we have seen how several establishments have led to several things. So, for example, we know within theater, the festival is the epicenter of theatrical work. So that has led to several group click tough kind of operation, where if you're part of the Regis, or you're a part of the past and you're part of this, is the group. So if you're not a part of those groupings, you don't get a chance to almost participate within culture, right? So we have to then now, as creative practitioners, as creative artists, as creative enthusiasts, policymakers, now assess where, because things were good at a particular point, but over time we have to assess how well they're working. They worked well X, Y, and Z. Are they working good now? What would have changed? Who would have entered the space? Who wasn't there? What do they bring to the table compared to when it was created? So we have to assess that now and see how we need to adapt, how we need to use what we have. And I'm so thankful to be here, because something Miss Batiste said today changed my perspective and the way I thought about a particular thing, right? Yes, it would be nice to have X, Y, and Z. But in the interim where we don't have X, Y, and Z, we have B. How could we use B to get where we need to get or do what we need to do until we get X, Y, Z? Right? Certain things are not just there are certain systems and processes and things that need to be followed for them to be done. So to persons who are seeking mentorship, find your area, find yourself, and find who works for you, and who aligns with what you wish to achieve, and also be honest with yourself. You cannot be going to the mentor because they're humans as well. They have their brands, they have their talents, whatever. You cannot be going to waste their time. You have to go wanting something, go giving something to get something. Yes, please.
Add to all of that.
Yes,
One of the things that I say to my mentees, I don't consider them mentees because I'm kind of, it's the contractual relationship we have, I'm working for them, right? So I always say to them, it's a process and it takes practice, because Rodney can attest to this. He has to practice. He can't just get up tomorrow and go and play pan, although he's a panist. If he wants to play pan at that level and maintain that level, he has to consistently practice. So I often say if I'm talking to somebody who wants to sing, I ask them who's their favorite singer. The young girls would say Beyonce, Rihanna, and all of these things. And then we start the dialogue before we even start anything. What do you think Beyonce does on a daily basis? Let's just say she gets up in the morning. What's her, her process? And that they have to go to a voice trainer. As much as she's talented, there was a process that entailed practice. So they need to always remember that.
That's a wonderful lesson. And yes, quickly.
It fly over my head, but I thought of currently there exists an intergenerational gap, right? Where culture and the different sectors of the arts is concerned, right? There is the then, and I don't want to resort to calling company names, etc. For creatives, we are generally touching we own, right? Because we are so creative, we think that we are creative and that is it. We know how it is, but the then groups and then organization, then players, then actors, then contributors, then creatives, right? You cannot now drop the ball on us. And I'm talking as a young person. Sometimes you're all going to want to say, oh, these young people don't want this, da, 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 da. But so I'm speaking for myself. I remember after coming to college, after going through the different rank, primary school, drama club, that after coming to college and pass, if I didn't realize that this is what I want, this is where I want to be, I probably would have, I studied law and I was hell-bent that I was going to become a lawyer. My first formal job coming out of community college, I worked at a law firm. And there was that limbo where I felt as though for me creatively, I was finished. There wasn't any other way for me to go, any other organization for me to go, because it almost felt as though the existing organizations were toughs. And I didn't know how to approach them. How do I approach this group? How do I approach that? Because I genuinely want to join. I genuinely want to continue. I don't want for it to stop here after coming into college. So to the potential mentors and the most seasoned persons, embrace us. As Nisha would have mentioned, put yourself out there. Let us know that, okay, you're here. We are hearing the names, we are seeing the work, but sometimes we don't know if we can approach them on that level.
But why not?
For me, I would go. It's either a yes or a no. But I'm saying there are several persons who may not think like me, who may not be as aggressive, who may not want to pursue and relentlessly pursue it as I would.
Do approach people to be their mentor, but and sometimes you see they come with fixed ideas. Like I remember a certain individual wanted to be a performer, a producer, DJ, and a musician. And I think because they would look at, say, Stevie Wonder, Quincy Jones. Now, he didn't just become Quincy Jones overnight. He had to go to music school. So that 25 years later, 25 years ago, he did We Are the World with Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie. And he come back now and he did the same, he did a choir, much bigger choir than the 25-year-old choir. And along with Lionel Richie again to do We Are the World for Haiti. But when you're putting yourself in that position, you must read Quincy Jones's story. When you want to be like that, you want to be a Quincy Jones, read his story. But we tend to want to be some there without coming, yeah. And Quincy and they were mentored by other musicians of the 40s and 50s. And it's just a stage that sometimes some of the mentees don't want to go through that stage. They want to be star of the show, like.
Right away. Quickly, right? As mentors, we have to be honest as a society too, right?
Yes,
to be honest, we have to be careful what we label success with in this industry. This industry is pretty, you know. It's very glamorous. And I think that's what a lot of people get caught up with. Because I remember when I was doing the theater arts course with one of the students at Thomas Sanders, and the flip side of his thing is that he don't want to be popular. He don't want to be successful in theater. Because if we get all that fight down and all that cuss and all that bad talk on radio and on Facebook, he don't want no part of it. So we have to also be careful, right? Now we also have to be honest as mentors that outside of the glamour and the glitz and all of that, this is what happened. I mean, when I tell a young man that I used to practice 8 hours a day, and I mean, when he hear that, he say, boy, you know what I mean? So when we look at the Beyonce and the Rihanna, as Nisha mentioned, you also have to tell them the process that we don't see. So we have to be honest, one, and we have to be careful what we label success with. The BMW downstairs or the big chain on your neck or whatever, what you're saying, we have to be careful because there's a lot more that goes into the industry before you could reach them things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
We say if you want Gucci money, if you want wear Gucci, you have to do what? Work for Gucci money. I would never forget that.
The level of passion on this panel is amazing. And I'm also being mentored. I'm learning so much from the panelists. And as we talk about culture and heritage, we're going to talk about stereotypes and prejudice and how destructive it can be. We are one. And sometimes you would hear, you're Mainland, I'm Grenadines. You're OTR, I'm Town. And you start hearing a lot of labels coming out to our own people. How do you think we can change this? How can we change this in our homes, in our schools, in society, and remove these labels that we put on Vincentians and just live as one and understand that we all come together to make one unique people? Miss Hope, I see you're ready to talk on this.
I mean, sometimes these labels we place on ourselves, and, it's not the intention of other persons to, make somebody else feel ostracized. But let's just, like, the most recent thing is, I have to always go back to my classroom. The issue was a discussion on mental health. So my students were joking about a particular individual that, became popular in St. Vincent who had mental health issues or suffered, from mental health issues. And they were joking about it. And I teach girls, so I teach the girls' high school. So it was girls laughing and making fun at another girl. And I have this, is a pet peeve. I don't like bullying. So I stomped it immediately. And it shows that when you have an opportunity to make and create change, you need to use it. Sometimes I think we're hesitant as Vincentians. We want to say so much. We want to make change, but we think about what the other individual has to say about it. And that's how sometimes we become silenced. You understand? So we have to think about empowering ourselves to enable us to empower others. And I don't know. Maybe I'm in a small, sheltered environment, but I am not in a place where I can really speak to labels. And I think as though sometimes what I've seen is that we place labels on ourselves and we limit ourselves, and we think, that we can't do and the fear of wanting to do things keep us all locked in a box. But I don't know.
All right.
It's
Thank
not
you, Miss
something
Sue.
I'm exposed to greatly.
Okay, Dr. Fraser, what would you say about this? You know, recently we saw Miss Matisse from Girls High School in her public speaking competition speak out about how the Garifuna people are treated and the things that are being said about them, and you know how she is so interested in breaking that stereotype. And we know it exists, even though some of us are not exposed to it. What would you say about that?
The thing is that when I know that there's always a problem with people from beyond the river, but a lot of that has broken down. Huh? When I was going to school, there were so many divisions. You're from country, you're from Kingston. But these days, you hardly know who is from where. Because there's a lot of traffic. People who live in Sandy Bay or in Kingston every day, you might not even know they're there. But granted, there's still that issue, and you know, I accept what she spoke about. I am not sure. I think it's something which is going to have to sort itself out, because I don't think there's as much labeling now as they used to be. But some of us still have some of those prejudices, even people from the Grenadines and so on. But it probably is still a problem, and I really is not something which you could have an easy answer to. I think it will eventually sort itself out, because there's a lot more mixing now than there used to be.
Do you think the media is any bit responsible for the continuation of prejudice towards any set of people in our country?
Really not something I've thought about in terms of the media. I am not sure. Anybody thinks?
I don't. That's the thing. I'm probably blind.
It's societal structure, the social structure. In the 40s and 50s and 60s, you wouldn't be thinking of somebody from over the river as going to a secondary school or having this. You know that they were looking at the people who were doing particular things. You put them in a box. That is for that. Unless you came from this family that had teachers, then teacher so and so is your family. So then you will be this. But I think that has sort of dissipated over the years by more the education, and education really helps. Having also more radio in the 70s and 80s, I think that has helped to lessen a lot of the prejudice. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that when I became minister, I remember going down to the Grenadines, and I recalled somewhere in the 80s the dancing of the cake. And there were a lot of people asking, what about dancing with cake? I said, they dance a cake for the wedding, from the man's house to the woman's house, and then they meet and they do the exchange and so on. And that is because, you see, sometimes we need to be a little more exposed to other things happening in all of the societies in St. Vincent. And they having the Saraka. And if I ask what's a Saraka, I know you don't know what is a Saraka. I know that. And these are... And these things help people who come from different parts of our state to be able to also integrate because of the cultural practices and the things that they do. The first time I heard somebody say, bring the shit they give me, I thought they said, bring the shit. I said, it's bring the sheet. But the way they said it, and you have to, this is something you have to also learn, is cultural appreciation and appropriation, so that this class and that, it has eroded significantly over the last 40 years.
But what she spoke about is the real thing, because somebody winning a public speaking thing, you don't associate with somebody from fancy.
No.
And I think she came up
against that. Yes.
But when you look, for instance, at the Grenadines, there's so much trafficking now between the mainland and the Grenadines. I mean, there were people who left here maybe 15 years ago said they have never been to the Grenadines. Now, every weekend there are people going there. There's a lot more traffic. So I think that has helped to break down a lot more of those prejudices.
And I just recently learned about the picking of salt in Union Island.
Yeah.
As old as
That's
I am.
because you're a tongue girl. You didn't go to pick salt in Myron or Union.
Yes. Randy, what do you think about the stereotypes and labeling in our country and even within the creative industry? If the dancers, the musicians,
then.
feel free to touch on it.
That topic for me, boy. Well, I guess I agree with most of what most persons said, and it's creating a big barrier where the preservation and documentation is concerned. Because I remember going to a particular place, I would not mention where, and we went there just to do documentation. Because people as usual cussing the department, all they ain't documented nothing. When we went there, the people didn't want to give up any information, didn't want to think, they coming to thief with thing, and if all the tech with thing, all they going want us anymore, and for weeks that went on to a point where we have no documentation on that particular area and the practices that is done there. So it is creating that barrier, to a point where, we no longer have community leaders bringing together the community and sitting them down and think, because they figure that, if I tell Rodney might tell Nisha who live tongue, and Nisha who live tongue might tell somebody in the world. That is a reality. I remember for weeks we tried. So that is one of the major thing that is happening, especially trying to get information, from the persons who are direct, who are from there, who was a part of it, who live it. It's very, very hard because of that. Well, in the industry, in my final year, one of my professors once say, be prepared. Be prepared. I was not prepared because, the labels and the stereotypes, and I'm talking now in the industry when you're now a practitioner. Basically, my professor was telling me it's a part of the industry. I think anybody who is in the spotlight, you eventually become a target. And there's different things that persons are going to say. It's just unfortunate from this part of the Caribbean, we see a male wanting to be a dancer as we know what we label it as. And it's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate to a point where we hardly have male dancers here in St. Vincent. Hardly have male dancers. If you look at majority of the dance group throughout St. Vincent and the Grenadines, you could hardly find 5 male dancers. I reached to a point where I was cussing when I look at the quadrille, females playing males in the quadrille dance. You understand? Yes. And it is and I'm going to be very frank.
That woman told me, Miss Batiste, how could you allow that? I said, what, excuse me? How could you allow a girl to play a boy and dance?
Yeah, and it is very dangerous. What our society is doing, and not just for dance, just for anything, for any entertainer who is reaping success. We're quick to put a lot of labels on them. And as I tell you, you take it for a joke. My student said, and Anatole is a very talented student, and he does not want to be successful or popular because of all the licks that we just get. And that is very, very, very dangerous, because then you would have a lot more persons moving away from the industry instead of coming to the industry, if that is what we have to put up with. And our society, even us as practitioners, we create that among ourselves. And one of the reasons for that is the big T word. I remember when a consultant came here, we paid that consultant a lot of money to tell us our problem in St. Vincent is trust. Trust. So because I don't trust JKL or JKL don't trust me, I'm going to start to put some labels on JKL. I'm going to start to badmine him. I'm going to start to pull him down, but not realizing we all can exist.
We can. We all can exist. JKL, what would you say about this? Yes.
It's talented.
And feel free to touch on any gender barriers, because I know you're also passionate about this.
For me, I would say, and it always goes back to being a creative. I consider myself, I hold myself to high esteem, and I think that other creatives need to do that, because we cannot be talking industry. When we look at the other industries, the workers within that industry, they are proud to call themselves an IT specialist, this technician, or that technician, a banker, financer, this analyst. But as a creative, and we're talking creative industries, I'm afraid to call myself a creative director. And honestly, while putting my stuff together for you, I was saying to Nisha, I must say, what else? JK, you're a creative director. You've directed several productions. At this point, you've proved yourself. And there's still that hesitancy to say, I am this. But stereotypes and labels, They existed long time and they're gonna continue. We can't follow ourselves to say they're gonna be completely eradicated because we're humans and we share different perspectives. We have been socialized differently. We are exposed to different things. So these things would come about. But I would say as a creative, as creators and cultural practitioners, there's a particular onus on us where representation is concerned. And I remember I sat in a room several weeks ago and I said I had a pet peeve. I went off in the room because there's this. I feel as though Vincentian creatives, we are afraid to research. So he put something, especially in this dispensation where the pandemic is happening, everything would have shifted online. We have to be very careful what we put as Vincentian or what we put as someone from a particular place. We have to respect persons. A few weeks ago as well, I did a production and I utilized two religious movements, social movements. I utilized the Rastafarian ethos and aesthetic in their community and also the spiritual Baptist. I remember during the rehearsal process, I have to remind these performers that we are talking about someone's belief system, we are talking about someone's identity, someone's religion. So you cannot be playing around even in rehearsal, let alone on the night of performance when this thing is being streamed live. So there's a particular onus from a creative perspective because we could touch on stereotypes and labels from so many different perspectives. I mean, if there was a sociologist in the room, that would have taken a different turn. But from my capacity and from where I am within the industry, within the grouping, we have to be particular about representation and what we put out, right? So it begins with us. So this is one way in which we could help to alleviate the problem of stereotypes. If we know as a theater practitioner, as a playwright, as a director, you're putting on this piece and okay, you want to show it, represent this particular aspect. You have to be very careful now how you present it so that it doesn't add to the current system already. Where the grouping, the vineyard, I use that one from the Prime Minister, the cultural vineyard is concerned. Boy, oh my, there's a lot where that is concerned. And it all goes back to, as Rodney said, the big T trust. It is a truth. Not only in St. Vincent, but throughout the region. Trust is a big thing because when it comes to our creation, when it comes to our ideas, we are particular about them. But if we are to move forward, we have to take responsibility for things that we know we would have contributed because it has to start somewhere. We would have contributed one way or the other to that broken trust or that breakdown in trust. So we have to then now identify that and figure out now, okay, how are we going to move forward? Because we need to move forward. We can't just be blaming everybody every time. We're not going to move forward, and every time we have an opportunity, we are pointing the game, the blame game, and then time a lot the entire meeting, the entire session is preoccupied with pointing our fingers and we're not going anywhere. I feel as though as a creative fraternity, as a group, we need to speak. So to persons entering to the existing persons, we need to speak. There are several things that we need to say to one another and varying levels. Whether maybe professionally, okay, Nisha, I did not appreciate how you conducted business with me here. Or whether it may personally, Nisha, I don't think that X, Y, and Z. Because I mean, we are workers. It's like our workspace is different. It's like teachers in a staff room, they're gonna be upset with one another, they're gonna have disagreement. So the sooner we see our industry as an industry, as us working and not just us merely existing in this space, we see ourselves as workers, as somebody putting in time to get a result, the quicker we are gonna move forward.
Thank you, Jekyll. And we can't leave here without talking about Vincentian food. When you visit a neighbor, what do you see in the plate? Do you see Vincentian food? Do you see madongo? Do you see roasted breadfruit and fried jackfish? How do we eat as Vincentians?
Don't tell me about roast breadfruit because there's several ways to do breadfruit. I have a pet peeve about a breadfruit festival that we need to return the breadfruit festival. A lot of time went into preparation of a book of recipes. The Hotel Association undertook that. They spent money on it. They spent a lot of time of their qualified chefs to test the recipes so that other persons from outside St. Vincent trying these recipes, it'd be well balanced and all the different things that chefs look for, acidity, this, that, how much pepper, how much this. The chefs did an excellent job, and you can prepare from appetizer to the liqueur from breadfruit.
True.
From the appetizer to the liqueur. So not just roast breadfruit. So Breadfruit Festival, breadfruit is part of again, I call it the mosaic of our history. It came here, what it came here for, what it was used for. And in the war years, where you had to make flour from breadfruit, and that is what you used to make the flour.
So do you think the roasted breadfruit in our national dish is representative of us?
Isn't that what you just tell me about roast breadfruit in my house?
But do we really utilize it as a national dish?
I'll tell you, it's a constant joke I have with people. I said the national dish of St. Vincent Grenadine is Kentucky. And the reason I said so is that I was shocked. This is about 10, 12 years ago, when on a Sunday, I was traveling to the Leeward, and I saw a lot of vehicles parked up near to where Kentucky was on Back Street. And all of these people were coming out with huge buckets of Kentucky. And I know on a Sunday, that is when everybody's home cooking. And when you pass at night and you see the number of people at Kentucky, you wonder. So I went to a graduation ceremony for a preschool at Spring Village, and they were asking them about the national food, what they like, and so on. And I'm there waiting to hear some voice, Kentucky. And I was so surprised. All of them, they're dealing with the local foods. But you go to some other people don't know about traditional dishes, And even it's on Heritage Day, everybody goes and they take madongo and so on. But apart from that, that is the end.
Once a year.
And traditionally, Sunday was the day when everybody is at home, and that was the day when you made sure you cook. And for people now to go out and just buy Kentucky and so on. And what is happening also is that some of our traditional foods and the food that we use to prepare in different ways, a lot of that is coming back to us now because with this health consciousness, now people are packaging teas and all sorts of things and they're sending it back to us while we are neglecting those things.
Mint tea. I don't know if you remember when you growing up, Dr. Fraser, you had to have mint tea on a Sunday with the cow's milk, and the cow's milk so fresh. And you better drink that cow's milk with the mint tea on a Sunday. Chocolate.
I was asking
cocoa tea.
I was speaking to somebody about fungi.
You
remember fungi?
Fungi.
You don't hear about that now,
Yeah.
So Jekyll, you asked to jump in right here.
For me, I know we could lose a lot of things, and we have lost a lot of things. But if it's one thing I know for sure, and I can say this confidently, we're not gonna lose is the food, because as Vincentians, if it's one we're very passionate about, is the food and the way we prepare our food and the way we eat. And I never really appreciated that because I've always been here, and until I traveled abroad, but more so when I began studies. I remember the first Sunday, I was like, a Sundays for us, they cook good. Sundays and holidays are to cook good, because growing up in Barley, we always say Sunday hungry is the worst hungry. Because that day now you have to cook the best of the best food. The best food. And I remember cooking, and my flatmate was like, "We're going on. You're having visitors." And I'm like, "We're not having visitors. This is what we do on a Sunday. Sundays when they cook is slush." And then particularly in Christmas now, when I started to, because I spent Christmas there, started to bring in my new pillows and my new sheet, and I started to buy up because I took up sorrel and callaloo and had them in the fridge frozen and waiting for Christmas to come. And they were shocked as to why we doing all this for Christmas. I was like, so I don't do this for Christmas. And, introducing them to the food. So I don't think we're gonna lose. The food is gonna be there. But what I think we need to do now is we need to, as Rodney kept reiterating throughout this process, finding now, crossing over. How are we moving from doing it for doing its sake, doing it for loving it, but doing it now to derive some sort of commercial value? Doing it now to include now your creation. We are not forgetting the core, we cannot forget the core. You have to remember that this is how you do pillow. This is what pillow is. But then we have to now empower our culinary persons to create. A as you would have mentioned, there's so many ways to utilize the breadfruit.
Book is available from the Hotel and Tourism Association.
There we have it right there. So
No, but at the same time, you know, if you take, for instance, Jamaica. Now, you go to any restaurant in Jamaica, and one of the first things you on for breakfast have a Jamaican breadfruit. They have yam, they have all sorts of things. You get it in Jamaica, and they have an appreciation. They have an appreciation for that. Now people complain here. Sometimes they go to the hotels and they can't get any local food, but the Jamaicans take pride in that. You know?
Yes.
What you have, because I think you may recall that there used to be some press people coming in for Carnival and the Mardi Gras day, a luncheon, and it was always just small fry fish, rapid plantain, tree, dukana, coconut bread, and the more creative people would put labels on them like Georgetown coconut, Oya, Mafabe. Then the name they know after places in St. Vincent, and the foreign people saying, but what is that? And what is this? They were fascinated by it. And we have to build a lot of things. You see, this industry, this new industry and so on. As I've been doing some more reading, and I wonder how come these countries are having all these different fairs? Because Barbados started off with a food fair, and they've maintained that food fair at Oistins.
I think there's the fish fry as well.
With the fish fry. And St. Lucia has this thing there. We used to have here a food fair. There used to be a food fair here in St. Vincent. And then it was at one time International Food Fair. And a couple of times, like I said, we did the Breadfruit Festival, especially in the areas where breadfruit is plentiful. And then the Ministry of Agriculture was so intrigued that they wrote a book on the different types of breadfruit we had. And it turned out that St. Vincent had the most types. I think it's 28 different species of breadfruit.
Like you know, speaking about breadfruit, little Jamaicans never roasted breadfruit until recently. Mm-hmm. When you spoke about roasted breadfruit, they want to know what it was all about. Yeah. And there's some things which we speak about the Caribbean culture, but there's some things that are different. I remember the first time I went to Jamaica, I went to this bar and I asked for beer. And this guy gave me a hot beer. I said, what is this? He said, but you asked for beer, you didn't ask for cold beer. I said, in St. Vincent, you can't give somebody a hot beer. And you find that there are these little differences, you know. And how you use the food too. For instance, one of the things I liked also about Jamaica, on a Sunday, we used to go to, what's the name of that place? And you know, it's a fish festival sort of thing. You go there, and they have a lot of the fish there. There's a big pot. And you go and you pick up which fish you want, you carry it over there, and you stay there while they fry or they boil the fish, and you eat it. And I always found that we catch so much fish in St. Vincent, we do not utilize it as much as in some of those other countries, Barbados and St. Lucia. You have what's the name? But we just don't.
Yeah, I'm talking about Kentucky. Yeah. Talking about bear. We just like to say thank you to the Hairouna, to the brewery, because Hairouna Bear, that's one of our sponsors.
Oh, so we have bears?
See, we don't have any here. If it was a Jamaican thing, if it was Red Stripe, even if they not drink the Red Stripe.
They put it there.
I'm sure the brewery will kind of organize something for you.
But you see, Mr. Freedom mentioned something very important. And again, I think Jamaica, they are the masters for it, right? You see that marriage between two different sectors, they know how to do that very well. Mm-hmm. So they know to marry food, and music, dance and fashion, and it's something that we need to start doing. You know what I mean? Because if we had that kind of thing, because last week Sunday I put on my Facebook, tell me something we used to eat back then on a Sunday evening, and I was surprised to learn about how much people like this homemade ice cream thing. This seemed to be a big thing, and roast pan and all these things. Yeah. But then, what is avoiding us from still doing the homemade ice cream?
We got lazy. We don't need to do that. We can just go and buy one in the supermarket shelf.
There's another.
You don't have to go. You remember,
Dates.
growing up, the best thing was to get the ice from the ice house
Yes.
in chunks and put
crush
it in the ice cream maker and you going at it until
Well, while saying that, we also have to bear in mind that culture evolves.
Yes.
And with the technology and so on, there's really no need to go back.
and building muscles.
Yeah, but the reality is that some of these countries that we're mentioning, they're still holding on to those traditional stuff, and people are dying to go there for it.
It's
Because the place we're talking about is Port Royal. The first time I see it when I went there, I was like, this really happening in front of me. When you go and you select your fish and they put it in a big thing, and that is something that was traditional to them, and they're still doing it. And people prefer to go there than to go to the Hyatt or the Pegasus restaurant. Everybody just wanted to go. And what Jamaicans did, they made a brand. That is the difference now. We need to start thinking brand here in St. Vincent. They made that whole fish thing a brand where every Sunday that's where everybody heading.
Right.
Because it's immersive tourism. I mean, I think this whole pandemic has positioned us, and if we're not ready, it would pass us.
We go back to the old ways.
Yes. Supposed to rethink. What is the value of this, and how could we merge it? How could we help it to be part of the whole fabric of the experience of people coming? Because I can't remember which country it was, where they had like a bus tour going to an estate. And so you could see the sugar cane and all of this. And I said, one day I asked somebody, I say, you ever been in a banana field? They've never been in a banana field. And they thought it was a great idea to put them in a banana bus. Now, you never rode in a banana. It's the sweetest ride in your life. It's those big buses. And that is so unique. We think it is not unique until you go to another country to see that they are utilized. They haven't left that part of their tradition. And just because the cars come from Japan, we all have a car. They have still maintained a few of those so people can see this is historically what you were riding.
And I think that too is one of the ways, because from some of the questions that you asked, that we can inculcate our culture present day, and we're not tapping into the marrying of the cultural industries with the tourism industry. Well,
in fact, that is a point which we should really have emphasized. We speak about tourism and agriculture, but the opportunities out there for us, it's in the cultural area. That is where we have our best chance.
Cultural tourism.
Yes.
Cultural tourism.
Thank you. Well, ladies, gentlemen, it was a wonderful time discussing culture and heritage. And as creatives and people in the cultural field, I'm going to give each of you the opportunity to come up with your most creative line to express how you love St. Vincent. And Rodney, yes, I'm going to start with you. Leave our audience with the most creative line you could think of to express your love for St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
This island is mine.
This island is yours. It's mine too.
Right.
Miss Matisse.
I love my country.
I love
my country.
Thank you, Miss Hope.
I don't have to reinvent it. We like we.
We like we. Wonderful. Dr. Fraser.
St. Vincent, my homeland. St. Vincent is me.
St. Vincent. All right. Thank you. Jekyll.
And in true Vincentian style, I'm going to say this. A Vinci may be, and I could only be a Vinci. That's it right there.
I still love the country.
All right. Well, I've learned so much from the creatives, and I'm going to give you my line. Vincentian today, Vincentian tomorrow. Yes, that's my line. Thank you for watching. Thank you to all our sponsors, Digicel, District Stairs, General Hardware, Role Model Fruits. Don't forget to get your fruits downstairs, Court. We also have Aldine Cosmetics and IKTV, Asbirth News Network. See you next week, Sunday, same time, same place. We're at Computec Conference Room, and we invite you to always go to Computec to get your hardware and computers, your flash drives. See you next week. Have a wonderful weekend.
My Digicel presents Hit via How To. Here is how you can purchase a plan in the My Digicel app and get instant access to all of our apps. It's simple. Let me show you how. From your home screen, find the plans and bundles icon in the lower left corner of your screen. Tap it to see your available plans and bundles. You can choose between a Prime bundle with data and talk or pick a plan from the Available Plans tab. Find the plan that's best for you Then hit confirm and you're ready to go. With your new plan, you may have access to more of our apps. Find them in the More from Digicel section and hit download for each of our new apps. You can also upgrade your current plan or bundle under the Active Plan section of your homepage. Excited to try it out? Download the My Digicel app today. My Digicel, better together.
Isn't it good to know that no matter where you are, you're covered? Covered by a company owned by Vincentians that understands your unique insurance needs. At Metrosint General Insurance Company, we've invested 50 years of service to guarantee that you have the peace of mind that you deserve. When it comes to motor vehicle, property, employer's liability, business insurance, and much more, we've got you covered. Our professional and friendly staff understands your needs and ensures you understand your options. Metrosint General Insurance Company.
Free, drink for free, drive for free, talk for free with Hairouna. You can win it all.
That's right. Free beer, free rent, free utilities, groceries, and fuel.
Check the bar for your 3 for 10. Look under your crown and win. Everything is rent, free. Utilities, groceries, fuel. You can win it all.
Yeah. Enjoy Ice Cold Hairouna 3 for 10 and check under the crown for the Live Up stamp and win a $200 cash voucher instantly.
Hairouna, you can win. Everything is free.
There's over $100,000 in prizes to be won. Rise up S3G and win with Hairouna. Terms and conditions apply. Promotion ends August 15th. Must be 18 and older. Please drink responsibly.
Computec Limited is one of the oldest computer businesses in S3G. Computec supplies a wide range of desktop and laptop computers and printers to suit your home or business, and is the only company that provides a full range of IT solutions to our many customers across St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Computec, your authorized service center for Dell, HP, and Lenovo. Ideally located in Kingstown on the corner of Egmont and Bay Street, opposite the Financial Complex building. Remember the name. Computec, 25 years and getting better.
District Stairs is making it a September to remember. We're offering introductory prices for laminate and vinyl flooring and baseboards and trim for the entire month. These luxurious looks at affordable prices are easy to install and come in an array of colors suitable for every room in your home. Act now to get free shipping. Check out our website at districtstairs.com or call us 289-200-7649. We're also on WhatsApp, Facebook, and Instagram. Remember, District Stairs.